He's remote because he got, well, I don't think.
They call to order this meeting of the Plain Township Board of Trustees. Everybody will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before us, we have our agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members or department heads at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add under communications, since there's already a thank you to the road department, I'm gonna add a second thank you to the road department and a phone call that I got.
Any other changes?
Mr. Chairman, item 3 under item number 3 in the zoning department is no longer, that'll be removed.
Any other changes? Okay, the agenda will stand as amended. The first item that we have is the sheriff's report. And we've actually got the honor of having Sheriff Meyer here with us this evening, along with John Oliver, Deputy Chief John Oliver as well. So,
Sergeant Cohn, go up there. I'd like to see what you look like.
I'll come up this way.
He's
Is that okay?
yeah, wherever you're
Okay, okay, all right. For December, you should have the December 2020 Plain Township monthly report. For the calls of service, we had 1,434. About the same as last year, only a 1.8% decrease compared to last year, but the numbers are fairly consistent to what we had. We had 46 crashes. We had 13 crashes with injury. Alarms were down slightly with 72. Our traffic stops were up. We had 193 for the month, about a 25% increase compared to last year. Our citations, we had 71. We had 69 arrests. Our units completed 212 vacation checks. And Detective Ross had 5 cases assigned, with 3 of those being closed, and they're listed. And then you should also have the year as compared to last year, and then our ongoing since we've been starting to keep track of this 2014. So a pretty good track record of just what our Decembers kind of look like.
So 2014, that coincides with you, right, George?
Yes.
Yep.
Again, we didn't have this prior to that, so
Yep.
it's good historical data to be able to gauge. Does anybody have any questions, Sergeant Knight? Is there anybody in the audience that has anything for the sheriff? Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
That concludes the sheriff's report. Next item, unfinished business. I'm going to turn that over to Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution to authorize payment to Wood and Brook for installation of 12 pillars to be installed in 2021 for the gateway identification measures.
I will so move on unfinished business number 1.
I'll second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
And then item number 2 is to amend resolution 20-6008 to approve payment to Canton Data Print for the newsletter.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
And then if I could, I'd like to turn it back over to Lieutenant Carver. He has one more thing he'd like to do.
Turn it over to Sheriff Meyer for
Okay.
a moment there.
Well, thank you, Board of Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to come in. It's always great to be in Plain Township. I say it's one of the safest townships in Stark County, but I'm a little biased, I will tell you. With that being said, I want to talk a little bit, you have up on your screen, I want to talk about one of our deputies, one of your deputies, quite frankly, and that's Deputy Tyler Miller. Tyler, you want to come on up here? I don't know if you know Tyler. Tyler is one of our deputies. He's been with the Sheriff's Office since 2017. I'm proud to say I hired him. So he's been a deputy a little over 6 years. He's also a reservist with the United States Army, been a reservist for over 12 years. We was thanking for that service. But you might remember this about Tyler. Back on October 18th, 2019, Tyler had the misfortune of being in a serious patrol car crash here in the township. Seriously injured, quite frankly. I've been doing this about 40 years. I've seen people die in this job. I've seen people get injured in this job where they can't do the job anymore. And when I seen Tyler's crash, and I think there's a photo up there of his car, I will be honest with you, I wasn't sure Tyler would ever have the opportunity to come back to work to be a deputy, something I think he loves doing. Both drivers were transported to the hospital for serious non-life-threatening injuries. Tyler spent about 8 days in the hospital. He's had multiple surgeries, 3 I think, right? And numerous sessions of physical therapy. And so I'm very proud to say we put him on light duty for a while and got him back up to speed, been working with him, getting him where he needs to be. But in January of this year, he returned to full duty in the township, so we're very proud. Good deputy for you guys. Does a great job.
In all seriousness, I remember getting that call, and the first time seeing those pictures, and yeah, how you survive is a testament in and of itself, let alone going through all the mental battles you probably did, like what the hell does this mean to, my future, why do I even feel like this? It's a testament clearly to your willpower and seeing it through and getting back to what you love. We're grateful to
Well, thank you.
have you here on Plain, and grateful, even though it was a long road, you're doing well.
Here and standing.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, Tyler, first of all, thank you for your service,
It's an honor.
and we're all happy to see you back. When I look at those pictures, obviously I used to be the fire chief, so I know what it's like anytime you have close calls. I know what it's like to be the guy at the top that looks at something like that and says, in reality, my goal every day is to make sure that whoever goes out on the job comes back home at that evening. And, when you look at something like that, that's a little scary. And Sheriff, I think I know what was going through your mind a little bit.
Absolutely.
And, we're just happy that you're back. We're happy you're well. Good luck, and thanks for everything.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your
That
support.
you survived and the strength I commend you. So glad that you're back
Thank you.
on full duty.
Thanks for coming,
Thank
guys.
you. I just wanted the board to be aware of that. It's been a long journey, but he's right back here serving in our community again.
That finishes unfinished business. We have nothing on our new business. It takes us to the fiscal officer's report.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in the amount of $136,701.47.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the financial report for the month of December.
Anybody's got any questions, feel free to follow up afterwards.
Fiscal Officer number 5A is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfer for 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 5B is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfer for 2021.
I will move on fiscal officer number 5B.
I will second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal officer number 6 is a request resolution to enter into an attached agreement with Finley to complete the actuarial valuation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 9.833 and to authorize payment from Fund 01A 28E not to exceed the amount of $2,500.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal officer number 7 is a request resolution to approve sick pay bonus as stated in the negotiated contract for the members of the Plain Township Firefighters Association as follows.
I will move on fiscal officer number 7.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that concludes fiscal officer report.
Okay, that's going to take us to the administrator, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution to authorize payment to the treasurer of the state of Ohio for our stormwater MS4 fee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a resolution for payment to Kurtz Brothers for hauling of yardways.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. And item number 3 is a resolution to authorize payment to Design Restoration for the water mitigation services performed in the zoning department.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
This will be paid, reimbursed by insurance.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
And that's the end of the administrator report.
Okay, it's going to take us to the fire department. Chief?
Thank you. Item number 1 is our monthly report.
Definitely kept busy.
Any questions? Okay, next item.
Item number 2 is our, the annual report for the fire department. And call volume down just a little bit from the last couple of years. I attribute that to the beginning of the COVID time frame. We were down in March and April quite a bit with calls. And response times are about the same as the last few years. So, other than that, just trying to adapt to the situation this year. So some of our tours and stuff have been adjusted because of that when you look through that.
Okay. Still good work, even on the cumulative year, especially how everybody stepped up in light of pandemic and all the adjustments to our processes, so. Next item.
Okay. Item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize reimbursement to Eric Kagi in the amount of $361.30 for healthcare membership reimbursement according to provision 37 of the collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution to accept the resignation of Nick Testa as a part-time firefighter paramedic in Plain Township as of January 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 5 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to accept the resignation of Matthew Brown effective January 11th, 2021.
I will move on fire department number 5.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 6 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees for payment and labor costs to remove packing and replace new packing to All American Fire Equipment for Engine 3 and Rescue 1, not to exceed $5,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 7 is a resolution to open up a blanket for Macintosh Oil not to exceed $10,000 for fuel and oil, not to take it from 10A09E.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 8 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to enter in the attached agreement between the Stark County Sheriff's Department and the Plain Township Board of Trustees starting January 1 of 2021 to December 31 of 2021 for all dispatching services for Plain Township Fire and EMS, pricing according to attached agreement.
I will move on fire department number 8.
Second, discussion. Again, how many years has it been now since we've consolidated dispatch?
Three. I think it
That
was
was
longer than that.
about six.
A bit longer than
6
that.
years.
Yeah. Jeez.
So,
Yeah.
in short, just so the public understands, outside of what we contract with the sheriff on the policing services, we also contract for the fire dispatch. It's on a call basis. And Chuck, do you mind just a couple of the benefits of, everything's right in one spot, we're not getting transferred out?
Our biggest advantage is we don't transfer calls at this time. If a basic call comes in for 911 for anywhere in Stark County, the dispatchers there would obviously dispatch us and the deputies if it's a collaboration call. And then probably our second biggest advantage is the fact that our deputies and us are dispatched from the same agency. So if we have a safety issue, we can communicate with them back and forth through dispatch. We have a delay there. And their supervisor, Mr. Curry over there, does an excellent job for us. So those are biggest things. But communication issues we won't have at this time.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Just as a point of clarification before you proceed, George, do you want us to send a copy back with Ryan once we?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Meeting?
Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck, go ahead.
Let's see. Item number 9, resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to change the status of Frank El Serio, Brent Ballman, Tyler Booth, Gabriel Mahaney, Joshua Short, and Seth Shire as they completed their paramedic training, and we increased the rates to $16.50 without benefits according to resolution 20-289.
I will so move.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the fire department. Thank you.
Thanks, chief. Next item, road department, Mr. Iacino, teleconferencing in here.
Good evening, everyone. Item number 1 is the monthly report for December. Do you have any questions?
I think we're good.
Item number 2 is the 2020 annual report. Say we are slightly less work orders than normal, but a lot of that has to do with the way we've been scheduling early in March and April and currently. But the work is getting done.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, he acknowledged.
Okay, item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to contract with Backdoor Excavating for the Linford Avenue Storm Sewer Project Phase 4. Backdoor Excavating will excavate trench, bed pipe and gravel and backfill and excavate material and compact. Not to exceed $48,250 from Fund 3C3 contract.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, I think this is just important. This is a project that got started through collaboration with Gary Connors while he was with the commissioners, right, Joe?
Yes, I guess it's Phase 4. We started this 4 years ago because of the costs to get it done, and we couldn't get any grant money. So we're slowly doing it in, with road department money. This will get us to a point where I think the road department themselves can finish the project. So this might be the last contract with Backdoor Excavating.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution to authorize the purchase of gasoline, oil, and diesel from McIntosh Oil not to exceed $15,000.
I'll move on road number 4.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Item number 5 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the purchase of 2 2022 International Dump Truck chassis from Rush Trucking Centers at the price of $27,827.55 each.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Item number 6 is the resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the purchase and installation of 2 2021 snow and ice packages from Glad Hill Road Machinery for $61,780.09.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Item number 7 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the purchase of culvert pipe from Marlboro Supply not to exceed $12,402 for the Linford project.
So moved.
Sorry.
Second, Brooke. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
And the last item is we received a resolution from the county commissioners for our weight reductions. It is for the whole county. As you can see, the Plain Township has roads on there that the board has already looked at, and we're in good shape for this winter.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Takes us to the zoning department. Tom?
Thank you, sir. First item on the agenda is the monthly report.
Good to go. Quick question on the residential construction. Have we heard anything more about Saratoga?
No, we haven't.
All right.
They haven't applied for anything or called.
I'd left a message based upon our last conversation 2 meetings ago about lot sizes and drawings, and I haven't heard anything back on it either, so when you see, I mean, the fact, how much new residential construction is still going on, I'm shocked I haven't heard something.
Yeah, new construction for residential is at a high for the township. And it looks like for the county. The next item on the agenda is the annual report.
I think outside of the housing starts, what still stands out to me is still the number of nuisances that you only end up dealing with. What comes in versus what actually gets spent. I mean, that just blows my mind because it used to be after a meeting up here, you'd have writer's cramp because of the amount of nuisances. And it's not that folks have gotten drastically better. What has gotten drastically better is the approach of your office, and I'll beat that drum all day.
Issue
All day
contact.
long.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
No,
Appreciate that.
Vince has most to do with that.
Well,
He's out there talking to the people.
Tom's humble. He does just as much on the administrative end. Same with the yearly reports that Tom has produced are vastly different than what the board used to get.
I'd say, I know it's a little credit, but I'm still on top of the whole Edelweiss and all those apartments back there, but he's helped me That's gotten a lot better.
Yeah,
I'd
he's
still like to
working
see
on
it get even a lot more better, but there's a realistic striking point there. So you guys, your techniques are very effective.
We haven't had any complaints from Goodwill for a while, huh?
Or
You
Salvation,
think
Salvation
so?
Army.
Well, I think they finally put in place some of the things that we wanted them to do all along,
Yeah.
and it made a difference.
But if we get any complaints, give
Yeah,
them Brooke's
that's right.
direct cell phone.
Next, or that was it? That's
That,
it?
that's it for zoning, sir.
Thanks, Tom. Let's get to Parks Department, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is the monthly report.
Okay.
Item number 2 is the annual report. We've remained very busy, just in different ways, given the COVID.
So realistically, looking at that number, you know, and you talk total receipts for Diamond, you know, we're down about a little over a third there, because at 157, that's typically been right around 223,
Correct.
230ish. So in light of all things, I mean, that's where those COVID CARES dollars were still very important in there, because that number could have looked even up.
That's for
uglier,
sure.
and there's nothing we could have.
No, and there's no telling what's gonna happen with the receipts into the next year. They're not gonna go up by any means. I mean, we're still seeing the results of that, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Item number 3 is a resolution for the Plain Township Board of Trustees to place a 1 mil parks levy on the ballot for consideration on the May 4th election.
I will so move.
Second?
Discussion. I just want to say there, I know we've approached this in the past. You know, we've stepped back, we've reassessed after hearing the voice of the public. The reality is the funding need still hasn't gone away. So as a board, we're bringing the business case back to the public to determine what level of service they want. In reality, the 1 mil will essentially allow us to cover our costs and just maintain a level of service. The important part, I think, as we've all discussed during the work session, our parks are not part of Stark Parks. Therefore, Stark Parks levies do not pay anything into our parks. Actually, the irony is Stark Parks gets credit for what's our product instead of the other way around. And I just think the 1 mil request, we're still very cognizant of the burden that taxpayers are faced with. But I mean, one of the things I think we've all learned during the pandemic is, okay, you can't go to the malls, you can't go axe throwing, you can't necessarily go to an indoor gun range or whatever it may be. And what was the governor always touting on 2 p.m. or 1 or 2 p.m. calls? Get out when the weather was nice. Get outside, enjoy your local parks, go hiking or whatever. And I know within 2020, I mean, we still saw a significant number of folks through the parks, and that would have been, you know, even remote. I mean, it really is about not just physical health, but mental health and well-being. So I think this is a responsible ask personally. We'll leave it up to the public. Do you have any additional comments you want?
No, I would agree with all of that. I think we have to look closely at the funding. And obviously, this is geared solely towards the maintenance of our existing parks.
Programming.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes parks.
Okay. Nothing out of the law director. It does take us to communications. The first one I have up here, afternoon to all of you. I wanted to email and say thank you to you and the road department for clearing the roads in Plain Township. All of your crew did the best ever job, even during the holidays, to keep the people safe, traveling wherever they may be going to or coming home. Thank you all. I appreciate all that you do. Carol Sparhawk. Next one, John, you had added under.
Yeah, this was a phone call, Joe, and it's a lady that, you know, she makes contact with me from time to time. Genuinely nice lady, and she was very impressed by the snow removal, but I'll tell you what really got her attention was when the guys went out and cleaned up the sod that the snowplow covered. She was so appreciative of that. She said she was going to go out that day to do it, and there they were. And I just think that speaks of the service level that we provide. I appreciate you recognizing that, but make sure that you pass that along. It's not always the big things, it's the little things also.
I will do that. Thank you very much for bringing that up. The guys do, you know, that happens, that no matter what, and they have done a good job cleaning up the whole township. Thank you.
That's, yeah, because that's not necessarily the case. I know when I come out of my allotment, Easton, sometimes I'm wondering if those trucks end up a little bit off the road, because I mean, with as much berm as there is, it's crazy, so. Okay, nothing else on our communication. It brings us to the portion of the meeting, public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the Board of Trustees, we ask that you state your name and address for the record. Anybody wish to speak?
Joe Marzelli, 7965 Norrington Circle.
Okay.
Just want to address the speeding problem on that street. And you've made an attempt to slow it down by putting trailers out there recently, but it doesn't seem to be working very well. Just want to know what we can do. Can we put a stop sign up at that intersection to slow people?
Short answer is this is a historical problem, not just in Plain, everywhere. The state does not allow us just to put up stop signs as a controlling speed mechanism. We've looked at, you know, road bumps, the maintenance on those, and the trends and concerns that come with it are another piece. You know, whether or not, you know, there's anything from a paint markings we've looked at in the past and tried to a flashing sign. I don't know, Joe, is there anything you want to add, you know, remotely just about, you know, this?
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Marzelli's neighbor this afternoon, and she said we did put both speed trailers out there at request from Lieutenant Carver. We can, you know, always do that again. I mean, it comes down to, you know, patrol when he can. I get all that, but we can't put speed bumps. Stop signs are not allowed to be used for reducing speed. It is a very wide road. I'm sure everybody, Eric, knows. And the traffic light is going in. Hopefully that slows people down. I'm not sure if it will. But if the board...
What information did you gather from the trailers? Did it show that there was speeding?
Joe, have you guys printed off those, downloaded the reports from the speed trailers?
Yeah, those reports are printed off, and it did show some speeding. I mean, they tend to make the speeding lessen. They give us times so the sheriff can get out there at certain times, if it's early in the morning, if it's 5 o'clock at night. Lieutenant Carver does have a copy of those, and I could always reprint another copy if needed, but we always give those to the sheriff then, so he can look at it and put his deputies when needed, when possible.
Mr. Marzelli, do you happen to have an email address that you could leave with one of our staff after the meeting? Hey Joe, if you wouldn't mind either printing and then scanning or just emailing that to Lisa. Lisa, would you mind just forwarding that on to Mr. Marzelli for us? What you'll see in it is it takes a look at times a day, and it slices and dissects this a number of different ways, from average speeds to your high speed, your low speed. Many a times it pretty much forms a traditional bell curve with, you know, a few of the outliers, and the problem is the speeders, there's a few of them where it's a high number, but when you look at the percentages, it's probably 95% to 97% that are within that bell curve of still being within the speed limit. So then, and I don't want to talk to the sheriff's office too much, but as much as they do coordinate at the beginning of shifts, hey guys, we need to keep an extra eye here, or when you're out, let's run a little extra traffic here. I know from doing ride-alongs with them, if we would sit and shoot speed, but then get a call and have to get the dispatch, sometimes triggering it down to those times and those vehicles that may come through. The sad part is, in most neighborhoods, the folks that are speeding live right within the vicinity.
sure,
That's the worst part of it. That's a generalized statement, but I mean, Sergeant Lieutenant, would you agree? I mean,
I would agree with that, and I don't have that report for this street on to look at off the top of my head. If I recall it, at first glance, when you look at the number at or under the speed limit versus the number above the speed limit, there's a decent number above the speed limit, but when you start looking at it, it'll break it down by speed. It was typically in that range of 5 to 7 miles over the speed limit, not a significant amount over the speed limit. We do push that out to our guys, and we share that information so that we can focus on the problem areas, or we can focus on the areas where we get complaints to have extra patrols out there. But like you said, the nice thing with that speed trailer is it shows us those times of day where the biggest problem is. And I'll tell you, in almost every area where we look at these, the busiest times of day are the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour. They're also some of our highest call volume times too. So that makes it a little more difficult for us to focus on the best time to be there, because at the same time all the crashes are happening and all the other things are going on.
I just feel like the positioning of those two trailers were so close that both directions of traffic have to slow down to get around them, or even stop and wait for the other one to pass. And I don't think it gives you an accurate reading, but the problem is, there's no sidewalks in that neighborhood. And people are walking in the street, kids, dogs, I mean, everything.
Some of those speed trailers can be a little bit deceiving for us. I mean, they'll give us good information. So the issue is that the trailer in and of itself slows traffic down some too.
Right.
But I can talk with Joe, maybe we put one of the trailers out there at a time for a little while.
Or even offset them farther apart, that would not stop that one lane of traffic from.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is.
They're designed and meant in and of themselves to help slow traffic a little bit as well. And it's just kind of that sense of, if you're driving down the street, you don't realize how fast you're going until you see that flashing in your face. It helps to program your mind that maybe you need to slow down as well.
hey Joe, you were gonna comment?
Yeah, the reason they were placed where they were, if you put them too close to either Cleveland Avenue or Killington, the speed's not gonna be there. You have to let, these drivers, once they get on Breton themselves, start building it up. But I can separate them some, but they will, as wide as Breton is, we can't separate them, and hopefully that they'll continue whatever they are speeding, and we can get it a true reading.
Isn't there any revenue that could be gathered from this if people were there more often? And even if the patrol would set back a little bit further from the roadway, I think they would find out there's a lot more.
Again, this is gonna come down to still balancing the priorities of the calls that the deputies get. We still have finite resources, even though we've got good coverage. I've used this analogy: we can tax every resident in this community till we're blue in the face, and it still probably wouldn't be enough as far as the right timing, because whether it's Markport, Firestone, what's over by your area, Lakeside,
Broad.
it's not Broad Avenue. I'm not trying to discount. Please don't take this as me discount. What I'm trying to get at is the volume and where it's at, and knowing hey, with the job that Ryan's doing and leading our guys here along with Sergeant Koenig, across the shifts, balancing that, even if we had everybody, he's still on each shift. The reality is some vacation times, some sick times, so that's part of it, but I can confidently tell you from the ride-alongs and time I've spent out there, it's been, maybe 2.5 months since I did the last ride-along. The guy I went out with, we sat a couple spots, and we were there maybe 5-10 minutes if I'm real aggressive, shooting some radar. Next thing you know, we're getting a call, to get up to the mountain at the hotels because somebody's stumbling around and, appears to be, high or intoxicated. So you've got some of those challenges, or hey, an alarm has went off, so triggers a response. We've actually, to the point of the stop sign point, Joe and Eric and the team have actually looked at in the past, seeing, okay, the Ohio Revised Code, i.e. with the state legislature, gives us that we have to abide by. Is there a different way we can look at this? Instead of saying, hey, it's a speed issue, are there parameters under safety, which, in most people's mind, speed, and there's a safety factor. However, the state, how they delineate those differences, we've tried to even go to that approach, because up in the Bobolink area, what's the one road that's up there that we used to always have? Hey, Joe, what's the, is it Peach, was it Peachmont?
Peachmont, yep.
Yeah, I've stood in yards with a couple homeowners and residents, and I believe that people come flying through certain areas to where we sat out on the corner one time, and no exaggeration, if this is the curb and I'm standing right here, the older gentleman that I was there with, he opted to stand further back. I wanted to tempt fate and see really how about, honestly, most folks, they're not paying attention, would never get out of the way, and that's the difficult part of it, so.
My son almost got hit waiting for the school bus on Peachmont when I lived there, in the corner.
And trust me, I'll tell you, even though it's been 27 years since it happened, being a hit and run victim, I really do get concerned over it, because, it's a sad situation, but trying to change it through the legislature, the challenges, we've got the ears of Scott Olslater, Schuring, Representative Stoltzfus. Problem is when they start talking about it down there and trying to get it out of committee, and what everybody else thinks or has opinions, because to your point, the comment you made of a revenue opportunity, that's why over in Mahoning County with some of the speed cameras and so forth that they've had, boom, would it make these guys' life a little easier? It may not, but there's even been opinions brought up on constitutionality of that and so forth. So outside of doing the additional trailers out there to trigger, reports for the sheriff and, Lieutenant Carver and Sergeant Koenig being able to share at the beginning of shifts, we really are limited, unfortunately, in what we can do in that aspect.
Yeah, I don't think the light at North Main Street in Brighton is actually going to help anything. I think it may add more.
Well, the number of dangerous / fatal accidents up there, that's part of what justified it. And actually, our law director, his office is right there on the corner.
We've seen so many bad accidents there. It's
Oh,
going to
it's
help that
horrible,
left-hand turn. It's that part of it.
So
It may not help your issue with the speed on the street, but it is going to definitely help the accident issue.
One of the neighbors, they were told that if you don't get much of a response, call the state highway patrol and they'll come up and this is just hearsay. That's what
I would tell you, the sheriff's office, and guys, keep me honest here. They've got a great working relationship with the OSP, honestly, since Sheriff Meyer has been the sheriff, based upon his OSP days, you know, they complement the sheriff's office, but they're not necessarily just gonna come in, and especially back in the residential, they'll get the main throughways, whether it's an Easton, a Middle Branch, Apple Grove. You guys have any other comments to add? I don't wanna put you on the spot, but.
I think that's a fair assessment. They generally don't come back in the neighborhoods that they can. They're in the same boat as all the other law enforcement.
Oh, sure.
Handling all the crashes, calls and all that, trying to prioritize everything. But, I mean, yeah, like you said, we do get along well with them, we work together. You know, we share a lot of the information as far as problem areas with them.
And I would tell you, actually, the patrol post commander, Lieutenant Leo Shirky, up off he's a township resident, and that's one of the things when do right along with the OSP. I mean, they get some of the same complaints, and it's crazy, you know, the skills these guys have outside of just shooting radar, to be able to sit in the median of a road and go, this one looks like it's coming hot, probably about 57 and a 45, and, you know, not too far off, but again, some of the resource constraints there. But again, they'll complement the sheriff's office, but it's typically those main throughways, so.
What deems the use of a stop sign? I mean, at what intersection? Does the road department, or how does that all work out?
It all starts out with, and Joe, keep me straight,
Yes.
keep me straight here, but when these allotments and subdivisions within a community are established, developers are responsible for providing a plan to regional planning. Regional planning reviews them. There's certain baseline requirements. Some of the factors that are taken into account, you know, have to do with distances, line of sight, banking of the road, like over in Saratoga Hills off of Bottler, with a bunch of additional development. I'm only using this because that road used to be too narrow, but yet the speed limit was 45. Well, then what happened was the developer wants to come in and line the road with houses, so you can have more density. And essentially, there was a speed study that was done up through there, and they had to come through and do a significant ton of grading. So that's one far stretch, but then just to get the stop sign, it really boils it down to the Ohio Revised Code and the state legislature, the parameters that are put in place through the Department of Transportation. So ODOT District 4, which covers this area, is up in Akron. I mean, you could probably call and get all of the absolute factors that they look at in those situations, but Joe, am I missing anything, or have I missed anything?
No, the one thing is, we have to understand that ODOT, they don't want to stop traffic. They want traffic to flow, and has a lot to do with the stop sign issue. Years ago, John, you might even remember this, they made us take away four-way stops. ODOT did. They're not looking to stop traffic, so it's hard to get that resolution through them to make another stop sign without it saying it's to slow this traffic down. So if there's not an accident data at any of those intersections, I doubt it will ever, you know, for safety reasons, be able to get that installed.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to come out tonight. I mean, the collective team really does make an effort and pay attention, but at any point, I mean, we can't just leave a speed trailer sit there all the time, but you can always call in, or the neighbors call in and say, hey, is it possible you guys can put us in the rotation? Because Joe and the road department maintain a running list of, hey, we've got a request for here. And typically it's out there for 2 to 3 days, so it can catch traffic both ways to go, okay, is the traffic count greater one way than it is the other? Is it equal, the whole 9 yards, and then use that. But
Yeah, we'll get those out hopefully tomorrow, so.
Okay, appreciate it.
Anything else, Mr. Marzella?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the board? Okay, that concludes public speaks, concerns of trustees, either of you. Okay, the concerns of the fiscal officer.
No concerns.
All right, takes us to the approval of the minutes. I will so move for December 22nd, 2020.
I'll second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Approval of the minutes for January 5th, 2021, also moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn at 6:50. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.